Diddy will be sued. And I say will be because nothing has been filed yet, by at least 120 people in the next 30 days.
We have some major breaking news. Sean Diddy Combs has just filed a $100 million defamation lawsuit against NBC Universal for the making of Diddy, the making of a Bad Boy documentary.
Let's dive into the swirling chaos surrounding Sean Diddy Combs, the man once hailed as the king of hip-hop, now grappling with the most relentless legal firestorm of his career. If you thought the allegations were the headline, think again. What's really making waves is how the case against him seems to be crumbling faster than anyone expected. And at the center of this unraveling is a name that's been lighting up corners of the industry gossip mill, Wack 100. Known for his unfiltered takes and connections deep within the industry, Wack has been painting a picture that might just flip the narrative on Diddy's supposed downfall. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. This isn't about innocence or guilt yet. This is about how a case that once seemed airtight is now slipping through the cracks, leaving victims, fans, and even legal experts scratching their heads.
If that's all they got, if that, like for example with Diddy, if that's all they got, he might actually walk free. And in fact, I heard he's getting bail. I'm not 100% sure of this, but I know someone that knows someone in the feds that told him that he's getting bail.
The only thing about Diddy thing that has me scratching my head, and you know I don't doubt nothing they know how to do, is I've never seen a one-man RICO.
Wack 100 didn't hold back when he weighed in on the situation, claiming the case against Diddy is, in his words, weak. And when Wack says weak, he doesn't mean a little shaky. He means flimsy, paper-thin, barely holding together. According to him, the prosecution's so-called smoking gun might be little more than smoke and mirrors. Wack even went as far as to predict that Diddy will be out of his cell and back on the streets by May 12th. That's a bold claim considering the mountain of allegations and public scrutiny, but Wack seems confident, almost smug about it. And he's not just pulling this out of thin air. He says he's seen the paperwork, analyzed the charges, and what he's found is a case riddled with holes. The first hole? A glaring lack of concrete evidence. When you hear about a case of this magnitude, you expect earth-shattering, undeniable proof. But so far, the prosecution hasn't delivered. Sure, there's chatter about raids, confiscated items, and sensational claims, but where's the hard evidence directly tying Diddy to the alleged crimes? That's the question Wack 100 is asking, and he's not alone. Legal analysts are beginning to notice the same thing. Without solid, indisputable proof, the case risks being dismissed as the kind of high-profile witch hunt that thrives on headlines but fizzles in courtrooms. It's almost as if the prosecution built its case on the assumption that the public's outrage would be enough to carry it. But outrage doesn't win trials, evidence does.
I don't know if they charged him wrong, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if they should have just charged him directly with whatever the immediate charge was, but he's under a RICO, you know what I'm saying? Like when you look at Big U's thing, it's like 7 or 8 other people.
Then there's the issue of accomplices, or the lack thereof. In a case like this, you'd expect a long list of co-defendants, the so-called inner circle who supposedly helped orchestrate and enable everything. Yet, here we are, with a roster of 0 accomplices facing charges. Not one. How does that even happen? If you're trying to convince a jury that a sprawling criminal operation was at work, wouldn't you need to show that it wasn't a one-man show? Wack 1 pointed this out too, suggesting that the absence of accomplice arrests doesn't just weaken the case, it practically dismantles it. And let's not forget, the feds don't usually play games. If they had a list of people involved, those people would already be in custody, singing like canaries to save their own skins. Now, let's talk about Diddy's legal team because, oh boy, they are not messing around. This is not some bargain bin defense squad. This is a dream team of high-powered attorneys who know exactly how to exploit every weakness in the prosecution's case. They've already tried twice to secure bail for Diddy, proposing conditions so extreme they might as well have attached ankle monitors to his lawyers. We're talking forfeited passports, multi-million-dollar properties on the line, and more. But both attempts were denied, which only seems to have emboldened them. Their strategy? Keep pushing, keep poking holes, and keep playing the long game. And with Diddy's resources, the long game is a luxury he can afford. Every denial just gives his team more time to chip away at the prosecution's foundation. And they seem to be doing it with surgical precision.
The flight was always going to be a tough argument for the government because obviously Combs voluntarily came to New York. He surrendered his passports through his lawyer. He could have fled after the March raids of his Miami and Los Angeles homes, but he didn't. He has access to 2 private jets. I think it was a tougher argument. I know the government made the argument, but clearly the best argument was the dangerousness and the witness tampering. They had much more evidence.
And yet, for all the confidence radiating from Diddy's camp, there's a shadow looming over this case that can't be ignored. The victims. The people who've come forward with their stories, risking everything to speak out, are now watching as the case teeters on the edge of collapse. For them, this isn't just a legal battle, it's personal. And the idea that Diddy's wealth and influence could buy him a way out? That's a gut punch. These are individuals who've already felt powerless, and now they're watching the system that's supposed to protect them falter under the weight of celebrity and money. The emotional toll is immeasurable, and it's fueling a growing sense of public outrage. But here's the thing about public outrage, it's fickle. While some people are doubling down on their calls for justice, others are starting to question whether this case was ever as strong as it seemed. There's a palpable divide forming, with one side demanding accountability and the other side wondering if Diddy is being unfairly targeted. And that division? It plays right into the hands of his defense team. The more doubt they can sow, the better their chances of turning this into a trial about perception rather than facts.
Now, this particular defense attorney's reason for quitting wasn't really a reason at all, making his departure a lot more puzzling.
And perception is where things get really murky, because this case isn't just about what happened, it's about what people believe happened. And belief is a slippery thing, especially when you throw in the kind of power Diddy wields. He's not just a celebrity, he's an institution. His influence stretches far beyond music, seeping into fashion, business, philanthropy, and more. For decades, he's been a symbol of success, of what it means to rise above adversity and build an empire. That kind of legacy doesn't just vanish overnight. It lingers, casting a long shadow over everything, including this case. And speaking of shadows, let's not forget the whispers, those persistent rumors about what really goes on behind closed doors in the world of Diddy. Because if the case against him is falling apart, the stories about him are only gaining traction. And the more you dig, the darker they get. And just when you think the storm can't get any darker, the clouds split open, unleashing a torrent of revelations that make Sean Diddy Combs' legal saga look like just the tip of a much uglier iceberg. The allegations swirling around Diddy's infamous parties, a universe that insiders have whispered about for years, are suddenly taking center stage. Forget the carefully curated image of a mogul who rose from nothing to dominate music, fashion, and media. This is the other side of the empire, the one that's been buried under NDAs, sealed lips, and a network of loyalty built on fear, favors, and who knows what else. And now, thanks to a string of explosive claims, it's all spilling out.
You are literally, it's an unhealthy space. And so eventually you're going to go too far, you know? Who knows what happened to Philip? Who knows what Heath had to do in order to get to where he was at? There's a lot of things that people do that end up sitting and they can't get over it. And they got to keep getting high, hoping to get it out of their head, you know? But when you lose your man card.
Terrence Howard, a man not exactly known for holding his tongue, has thrown gasoline on the fire with his own chilling account. Howard described a world behind closed doors where power games were the currency, and Diddy's gatherings weren't just about red carpets. These weren't parties in any traditional sense. They were arenas. Arenas where reputations were made, lives were shattered, and compromises came with a price tag no one wanted to talk about. Howard didn't mince words when he described the atmosphere, a cocktail of manipulation and control, where even the most seasoned industry players knew they were walking a razor's edge. And if you weren't careful, well, let's just say you might leave with more baggage than you came in with.
Card.
What is that? What do you mean by that?
You give up your ability, your right to being a man. A man don't take it, a man gives it. So when you give up that man card, you don't get that back.
Are you saying what I think you're saying?
No, I'm saying what I'm saying.
Howard's insights go far beyond surface-level descriptions of these infamous gatherings. According to him, the events were meticulously planned, almost like a performance designed to showcase and reinforce power dynamics. Newcomers, whether they were aspiring artists, up-and-coming actors, or social media influencers desperate to break into the big leagues, were introduced to rooms filled with industry heavyweights. These introductions, however, were anything but casual. Howard suggested that the gatherings operated on a system of quiet tests, where attendees were subtly maneuvered into situations requiring them to prove their allegiance and willingness to conform to the unspoken rules. Everything about these interactions, from the atmosphere to the body language of those involved, seemed charged with hidden expectations and silent evaluations. Many of the newcomers, Howard noted, didn't even realize they were being scrutinized. But the underlying tension in the room made it clear that these meetings were about asserting control, not forging connections.
That was all the people that went to the puffy parties. That was all the people that did all those things thinking that there was never going to be a consequence for what they were doing. Got punked out and pimped out by some greater desire. You shouldn't have a greater desire than being a man. So I believe that's a big problem with a lot of the actors out there because they get fluid. And next thing you know, once you go fluid,
Adding another layer of complexity, Howard claimed that Diddy didn't rely solely on his own influence to maintain this power. Instead, he allegedly leveraged the authority of other powerful figures in the room. These individuals, often household names themselves, would subtly reinforce Diddy's dominance through small gestures. Anything from a knowing look to a brief pointed comment. The message was clear. Diddy's authority was absolute, and challenging it was not an option. Howard recounted instances where those who defied this unspoken hierarchy faced immediate consequences. Careers would suddenly falter, phone calls would go unanswered, and previously abundant opportunities would evaporate without explanation. For some, it was as if their professional lives had been erased overnight, leaving them alienated and powerless. The fallout wasn't limited to their work. Even their personal lives seemed to disintegrate under the weight of being cast out.
No, I get it. So you see some guys struggling with that. You see Bieber struggling with that. You see some of these guys struggling with that.
They can't get it out of their head. They can't get it out of their head.
Howard also spoke about the emotional and psychological toll these events took on those who found themselves caught in Diddy's orbit. Many arrived full of ambition and confidence, only to leave drained, their initial excitement replaced by fear and disillusionment. He described seeing individuals with bright futures reduced to shadows of their former selves, burdened by the realization of what they had stepped into and what it demanded of them. One particularly haunting moment involved a young artist, whose name Howard chose to withhold, breaking down in tears in the middle of one of these gatherings. Overwhelmed by the pressure and the dawning understanding of what was being asked of them, the artist became a stark example of the personal cost of these spaces. For many, Howard explained, it wasn't just about advancing their careers. It was about the steep and often unspoken sacrifices required to do so.
Will you help me? I want to hear your music, so I come over there and I play the music. And he's sitting there, just looking at me, like waiting. Okay. So then my assistant was like, he wants to hang out with you next week. And I was like, for what? He's like, I think he's trying to you. That's what my assistant said. And I was like, oh, okay. Now I get it. So now no more communication.
Perhaps the most unsettling aspect of Howard's account is the collective silence that seemed to permeate these gatherings. Despite the unsettling dynamics and visible discomfort of some attendees, no one ever spoke out. Howard described it as a culture of complicity, where even those who felt uneasy about what they were witnessing chose to remain quiet. Fear of repercussions and a desire to protect their own positions kept everyone in line. According to Howard, those few moments when someone looked as though they might object or intervene never materialized into action. Instead, they would remain passive, adhering to an unspoken rule that ensured silence. To speak up meant risking exclusion, and for most, that was a risk they simply weren't willing to take. In Howard's view, this complicity was perhaps the most disturbing aspect of all, a collective acceptance that allowed the cycle to continue unchecked.
There's a short life in
Why do you think that is with the creative side?
Well, because losing out money, you got to take you're going through so much to try and deal with life.
Howard wasn't the first to hint at the shadows lurking behind Diddy's glossy image. Old remarks from Usher, long buried but now clawing back into the light, paint a picture that's just as unsettling. Usher's comments from years ago about his time spent under Diddy's mentorship have resurfaced with new, sinister undertones. Back then, his words might have been brushed off as cryptic or even playful, but in the context of today's allegations, they suddenly feel like breadcrumbs leading to a much darker truth. Usher once spoke about being exposed to things he couldn't fully understand at the time, things that shaped him but also left him questioning everything. And now, years later, people are starting to ask, what exactly was he exposed to, and why does it feel like Diddy's parties were less about celebration and more about control? And here's where it gets even messier. The whispers about Diddy's gatherings don't just stop at the behavior, they extend to the leverage. Industry insiders are speculating that Diddy didn't just host these parties, he documented them. And not for the family photo album, if you catch my drift. Rumors of recordings of compromising footage featuring some of the biggest names in entertainment have been swirling for years. If true, this would mean Diddy isn't just a participant, but a puppeteer, holding the strings to secrets that could ruin careers, marriages, and entire legacies. Imagine the power that kind of leverage would give someone. It's no wonder so many people in the industry have kept their mouths shut, even as the allegations pile up.
There is so many people involved in this situation that works the machine here, that, you know, Diddy's obviously the head of the whole situation, you know, the king of parties, but there is multiple other people involved that are helping along the situation, or you know, participating in some way.
And the list of names attached to these parties? It's a who's who of Hollywood and the music world. We're talking megastars, household names, people you'd never expect to be caught up in something like this. And while it's important to note that being present at one of these gatherings doesn't imply wrongdoing, the mere association is enough to send PR teams into overdrive. Some celebs are already scrambling to distance themselves, issuing statements, denying involvement, or claiming ignorance. But the damage is done. The public is connecting dots that may or may not exist, and in the court of public opinion, that's often all it takes. The conspiracy theories around Diddy's alleged vault of secrets are reaching a fever pitch. Some believe these tapes, if they exist, are his ultimate insurance policy, a way to keep himself untouchable even as the walls close in. Others think they're his Achilles heel, a ticking time bomb that, if exposed, could bring not just him but an entire swath of Hollywood crashing down. And let's be real, the idea of a vault filled with incriminating footage is the kind of thing that fuels tabloid dreams and keeps lawyers up at night. Whether it's true or not, the mere suggestion is enough to make people sweat.
Is illustrating is this completely out of control party on a super yacht, including various celebrities, that when you read it, it kind of rings true. I mean, when you read it, it doesn't come off as being something that's completely unbelievable. You have to take into consideration that.
And speaking of sweating, the public reaction has been nothing short of volcanic. Social media is ablaze with theories, outrage, and yes, memes. Some people are calling for a full-scale investigation into not just Diddy, but the industry as a whole, demanding to know how something like this could allegedly go on for so long without anyone stepping in. Others are more skeptical, questioning the timing of these revelations and whether they're part of a larger agenda to bring Diddy down. But whether you see him as a villain or a scapegoat, one thing is clear: the public isn't looking away. If anything, they're digging deeper, and every day seems to bring a new layer of controversy. But here's the wildest part: even as these allegations surface, there's still a sense of unfinished business. For every claim that's made, for every shocking detail that comes to light, there are a dozen more questions that remain unanswered. What really went on at those parties? Who knew about it and for how long? And perhaps most chillingly, what happens next? Because if the past few weeks have taught us anything, it's that this story is far from over. In fact, it feels like we're just getting started.
It always feels like that, especially before federal trials, because you get to read the indictment, you have not all, but you have much of what the prosecution is going to be.
But there's something additional.
Of their strategy.
There's something additional here. You're right that they hear about all of that, but what they're also hearing is these other lawsuits that have been filed by all these civil law firms.
So what do you think? Are we witnessing the unraveling of a music mogul, or something even bigger? Could this be the moment the industry is forced to confront its darkest secrets, or will it all get swept under the rug yet again? Let us know your thoughts down below, and trust us, you're going to want to stick around for what's coming next. This isn't just a scandal, it's a reckoning. Stay tuned.